Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining. I guess more people may be joining, recording the session anyway, so we are good. Over the last few days in particular, I'm getting a lot of questions despite having regular podcast about, how to deal with this unexpected hurricane, quote unquote, in the market. I mean, so if you have not been, or if you have not experienced a decent kind of a correction before, this may look strange to you because we have been in a one-way sort of a rally. But this, to me, this is a very shallow-looking correction so far. I mean, in all honesty, and I'm not trying to scare anyone, we have not seen the kind of corrections that we have experienced in the past, and I'm not even talking about the GFC of 2008 or the COVID meltdown. No. I have seen corrections, decent corrections in the middle of a bull run. So 2006 April, May, I recently tweeted. I had good exposure, very concentrated portfolio, about seven or eight holdings. My top holding, I still remember, was an auto component company, 25% or 27%. And within 7 or 8 weeks, from top to bottom, that stock was down 50%. And I was speechless. There was no Twitter. There was no one to talk to, right? And then in the next 7-8 weeks, the same stock that was down 50%, in the next 7-8 weeks, that same stock made a new lifetime high. Not 52-week high, lifetime high. So, and this is just one example. A more recent one, some of you may have experienced that in 2016, beginning of the year, we had a US-led correction, decent one. And that's where I got a lot of chemicals, including Deepak Nitrite. And then at the end of that year, same year, 2016, there was demonetization. So in that context, I think this is a very shallow, benign looking correction. As you guys know that I follow healthcare almost religiously. So maybe I can start with a monologue and then I'll take whatever questions, the important ones I have segregated. And then if you're still not sleepy, if you've got any sort of questions, feel free to ask more questions on this thread, and I can go through them after I'm done with the original set of questions. And some of them are, they're waiting for my response for quite 2-3 days at least, if not longer. Okay, so starting with healthcare. So I recently tweeted that healthcare has got some 15 different sectors, and I believe this is not a decadal theme. I repeat, healthcare is not a decadal theme. Healthcare is a multi-decadal theme. If one is reading the data, it's all about data. So India is not a young country. India is a relatively younger country. The 55 plus year cohort is the fastest growing one in India. So when you think about your children and grandchildren, give them a healthcare index. Africa is the only country left behind India in demography, to my mind. And we in healthcare, we are dealing with high science manufacturing. So it's like an art that is joined at the hip with the science itself. Now, in a world, look at the macro picture here. In a world where China is aging, Korea is aging, South Korea that is, Japan is already a hospital, and many EU countries are following Japan for sure. There will not be many consumption options left by the time we cross, let's say, 2035. So just a decade out. What does this data tell you about the terminal value of any high quality business operating in the healthcare ecosystem? Think about the terminal value, not where the EPS is today. Think in terms of the earnings power and where the terminal value can be 5 years, 10 years, 15 years out. And you have to position today. The alkyl amines, which was the hot trade of 2021, the positioning started in 2011. Right? So think from a terminal value perspective. How how many countries will be able to serve the global population. Think from that perspective. And so in that context, from hospitals to highly skilled manufacturing of both GMP and non-GMP chemicals, India, to my mind, will play an increasingly important role. And so that said, let me flip over to the questions that have been flowing earlier today on my timeline. So the first one is from a question from an impressive guy. The question is how we buy companies and become fully biased about it. We just want to hear all positive things about it. It's a very valid question. It's all about your biases. If you own a stock, you talk it up, you're much more positive. So here is a role play, right? So I am new to Twitter, and a friend suggested a weird handle name called quote unquote unseen value. That sounds weird, right? I mean, a Twitter handle by the name of unseen value. There is a profile picture showing off a flashy sunglasses, and I know how social media is. So I would be hypercritical and careful, right? I don't trust strangers, and this guy is definitely a stranger to me. And this guy, Unseen Value, talks about his stocks and does frequent podcasts and talks up the stocks where he is invested. I mean, all that is a clear signal to avoid such handles, very clearly. So but if I'm really keen and if my friends keep pressing me, I will try and dig around his track record. I will check his older podcast and maybe I'll go from there. But in any case, I won't buy anything he talks about because we live in a dangerous world full of crooks. As social media is not a place where you can find a stock tip and you can invest your hard-earned money. So you have to start with, I do not trust this guy, and I will definitely not even touch the stocks that this guy is talking about on social media, because that's how the world is. Now, so how do I deal with? So that was the kind of a role play. This session is recorded. Maybe 3 years later, someone may be listening to this. Don't trust anyone on social media. Don't trust anyone on Twitter. Don't trust anyone on WhatsApp and Instagram and so on. How do I deal with my own biases? So I'm invested in Laurus Labs as an example. I'm invested in Neuland Labs as an example. How do I deal with my own biases? So I'll tell you what I do. Margin of safety is a potent antidote to kill all biases. If you have got a very strong margin of safety, you are automatically taking care of your biases. And that's the reason I avoid IPOs. All sorts of IPOs. I did not invest a single penny in Akum's most recent IPO, healthcare. Fine. I avoid IPOs because I need to understand the leadership team first. That's the basic criteria of my valuation framework. I don't trust any EPS. I don't trust any ROCE. If I don't trust the people behind that ROCE, if I don't trust the people behind that margins, if I don't trust the people behind that sales. So my core thesis is never about where the business is today or what molecules or what markets, etc., etc. No, none of that. I'm interested in a business for the future. So I care a lot about the management. I couldn't care less about where the stock will go in next 6 months or even 2 years for that matter. Because I know pharma workflow, and we have talked about it, I've explained it many times. Pharma workflow demands patience because the workflow itself is having a very long gestation, right? So that's how I would deal with my biases. I will not trust anyone on social media, including this weird guy, Unseen Value, and I will do my own due diligence, my own homework, and I will wait for a very significant margin of safety. I will do my assessment. So if I find that the stock is worth, let's say $1,000, I will try and get in around 300 or 350. Because I could be wrong, my analysis could be wrong, markets may remain irrational for 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, who knows? So I'll keep a very high margin of safety. And if I'm keeping a very high margin of safety, which typically I define as price to book and price to sales, I am covered. I hope I've answered that question. So moving on to the next one. So question from @digital_dalal45. Um, I think he read or listened to the recent earnings call of Hikal. So this is one of the questions that I asked them. It's about the difference. It's about N-1 and N-2 in the context of, what the Japanese innovators are demanding from India. And that's the context. So his question is, what's the margin difference between N-1 and finished product? Okay. So those who are new to this space of chemicals and pharmaceuticals, let me just do a quick recap of how the value chain looks like. So the value chain looks like you start with basic chemicals, benzene, etc. From basic chemicals, you move on to basic intermediates, and then the advanced intermediates come next. Then basic APIs. So when I say basic APIs, I mean ciprofloxacin that Neuland used to manufacture about 15-20 years ago. They still do a very small, insignificant. Ibuprofen is another example that Solara and other companies are also doing. So these are all basic APIs. Highly potent and complex APIs are the penultimate. So where, the true genuine quality CDMOs operate, it may or may not be an NCE, but it will definitely be either a compound with higher potency, some sort of a niche technology advantage, 20-step, 30-step synthesis, which will make these APIs as complex. So that's what the N is, in my example. Formulation, of course, is the formulation. So it's not, so in most cases, if you are doing the final API, your margins will be higher. And I'm using my words carefully here, and I say most cases. In exceptions, so if you know the rule, you have to know the exception. In exceptional situations, the intermediate that goes into that final API may be incredibly complicated. It may be a 10-step, 15-step intermediate. And then if you supply that intermediate that goes into the final API, the margin delta may not be significant. It may not be significant. So it depends on what you are making, but generally speaking, if you are supplying the final API, the margins are better. But I give you an example of Suven Pharma. Suven Pharma has got no capability at an API level, so I'm not taking Cohance here. And despite that, they have reported 40-45% EBITDA margins. So again, there are several levers behind. As I said, complex intermediates may give you high gross margin, and if your cost structures are such that you've got operational efficiencies, you can generate a good 40% EBITDA margin, which is what Suven Pharma has been doing before the merger announcement with Cohance. So don't assume that if you're making complex intermediates, your margins will be low. Suven Pharma, again, as an example. Divi's has got the end-to-end capability from intermediates all the way to API. If we ignore what has happened with Divi's over the last 2-3 years, they have been consistent in their margins, about 35 to 40% kind of a range. So we know where the margins can be in future. And again, it's a case by case, very bottoms up. You can't paint each and every CDMO or pharma company with the same sort of a paintbrush. Okay, so the next one is a question from Vivek Verma. Is asking a question about orchids and metazobactam, and he's comparing that molecule with Wockhart's NCE WCK522. Question is, who do you see winner from here in the medium term of 2 to 3 years? Interesting question. So my answer would be, I want science to win. So science must win. Scientists are national assets. Doesn't matter where they are or which company the scientists are working in. And they may be working in Wockhardt, they may be working in Sun Pharma, they may be working in Laurus Labs, Syngene, wherever. Scientists are our national assets and they must win. I want Wockhardt to win and make India proud, because that will be, something positive for India as a whole, that look, our scientists are good enough, we can innovate a new molecule. So that's what I want Wockhardt to do. In terms of the opportunity, if Wockhardt, so currently, as a disclaimer, I'm not invested in Wockhardt, as I eat my own cooking. So if you have the book, I'm referring to figure 8.4, which is probability of failure versus time adjusted payoff, and I strictly follow that model. So I'm invested in Orchid. But my initial buys were near 280 to 85 zones. Of course, margin of safety, but I added some more on the way up. So that's a clear disclaimer. In terms of who will win, as I said, I want both of them to win and more companies to win. A market, to my knowledge, is big enough to accommodate 3, 4, 5, 6 players, because it's such a there's a very high unmet need in this space. So I don't think, 2-player or 5-player, even if it's 5, so there may be 3, 4 Wockharts, not just one. I don't think it will become a bloodbath kind of scenario, which may be the case with semaglutide, that GLP-1 molecule that many companies. So I see that as a significant risk in Natco, in Strides, many Indian companies. And again, this is just a caution. I want all companies to be successful, but as an investor, I always am petrified about, the downside. So I care about the downside more than the upside, and I see a large semaglutide capacity waiting to flood the markets. The generic capacity, that is. So that's something that I am really worried about, and that's the reason, I'm not adding more money to something like Natco, because stock has run up quite dramatically. There is an earnings cliff coming over the next 18 months or so. And I know semaglutide is not a story that I can shut my eyes and just blindly buy that sort of narrative, because I know what Chinese are doing, and I know, what other Indian companies are doing, that there will be capacity constraints. So I cannot assign a multiple to any cash flow unless that multiple is sustainable over 30, 40 years. So that's my concern. And I think Natco's call, Rajiv Nanapanini, again, AAA management, TCE grade, initial chapter 1, that's the reason I mentioned him there. He is very open, honest, blunt. That is the kind of management I like, not the one that creates flashy presentations and, do all that clip talking. No, I want people like Rajiv. I really like people like Rajiv. He's blunt, he's open, he's honest. But I hope, they find the next blockbuster beyond Revlimid, and they continue and go on and on and on. But currently, I'm in no mood to average up anywhere near $1,000. Okay. And I've been very positive and vocal about Natco. You can just search on my handle and go through the previous tweets, 2020, 2021. I've been positive because the stock was $400, $500 back then. Things have changed. And as a business model, Natco is diagonally opposite to NCE CDMO. So it makes perfect hedge to have both Natco and an NCE CDMO, right? So I hope I've answered that. Moving on, I'm just looking at the next. Interesting one from a guy called Lishoy, Lishoy. And I think I retweeted this. So which management has capability in India to make it biggest global player in the CDMO space? Oh, too many. So again, look at what the existing competitive landscape is like. So Divi's is the number 1 largest player, but Divi's to me, and I've explained this in detail in the book, Divi's to me is largely a creation of first generation. I need to see what technology additions the second generation does, and I want to see the execution over the next 5-7 years, because I know Dr. Murli Divi is still around, so he's mentoring the next generation. But Divi's, as I see today, is a creation of Dr. Murli Divi, and not the second generation. Whereas in case of Neuland, I think it's 50-50. The father set up beautifully the compliance culture and the platform, and then the brothers are just executing well over the last 10 years or so on the top of that platform. So Neuland is slightly different in that context, because the second generation has definitely proven their worth, but not in case of DVS. But definitely DVS, I expect that to remain the leader. Then we have got Piramal Pharma, again credible player, US presence on soil, manufacturing development presence. We have got Syngene in biologics. I don't think there are many players who can compete with the level of scientific expertise, execution capability that Syngene has in the biologics space. Then, of course, Laurus. I keep talking about this company quite openly. And I see something which I know market may be oblivious. So I see a proven management here playing sensibly in capex, and I see they are trying to leverage the innovator relationship. So in my book, in the initial introduction, I used a term about uncertainty. Whether it's intentional or unforeseen or unintentional uncertainty. Laurus is leveraging intentionally. They're bringing in uncertainty in their business. That's all by design. That's all intentional, and that's all planned. And they're doing it on purpose, because that you have to take the pain initially. If you want to do something in this, that's how this space is. There's a very long gestation period. You need capability, you need capacity, and all that the management is doing is quote unquote intentional. And they've said this openly on I think in the recent television interviews. I don't remember the channel. Dr. Satya was talking about that. We are taking the pain because it's by design. It's not. No one is forcing us to do all that capex, etc., etc. So that's one. So all that is intentional. Why do we think? The other thing is, if I validated the management, why do we as investors think that we know more than those who have created large scale enterprises? I haven't created a large scale enterprise in the pharmaceutical manufacturing industry, and most of you haven't. So, and they own this just one stock. They are playing very concentrated portfolios, just one stock, that company, right? So why do they not worry about their company as much or much more than you do? Because you have a portfolio of 20-30 stocks. You may sell tomorrow, and you couldn't care less, right? We are very flexible. I may be having 5% in 20 stocks, and I don't care what's happening versus a promoter who is having 100% with no other source of no other business, no other interest other than that listed entity. So it's a big difference in not just skin in the game, they've got soul in the game, right? Which is one level up. And what I see today, looking at the niche technology that Lawrence has created over the last 3, 4, 5 years, I can boldly say that today the technology capability that Lawrence has is significantly ahead of TVs already. Lawrence is ahead of TVs in terms of the scale and the breadth of optionality in the business and the technology platform that they have created. I've got no doubt about that. Again, I could be wrong because biases and all the rest of it, the stuff that we covered, a little earlier. So just don't jump in to buy. You have to do your own homework, because use your own sort of vision. It's your money. It's your capital at risk. And then, so that's fourth. Then thinking in terms of niche technology CDMOs. So again, we have got Neuland and so Suvain Cohens as a niche technology CDMO. Uh, we may get Hikal and Solara joining that pack soon. We hope. We want as many companies to be successful as possible. So these can take that space of, the niche technology CDMOs. And I've explained all these framework in the appendix section of my book. So feel free to dive into that. In the interest of the time, I'll just skip that one. And yeah, again, we don't have enough execution data on Strides, so they are also about to carve out their CDMO. But it's like an IPO. I need to see the execution. I need real evidence, not just ROCE and EPS and margins. I want the real data. So the data that I was getting in Neuland was not the EPS and all the rest of it. I was looking at their CDMO traction, and they were explaining it beautifully in the annual reports. You could pick 2007 old annual report of Neuland Labs. You would find, everything about custom synthesis and what they were planning to do. And I was seeing growth in their CDMO division. It was growing at 23% in 2022 when the stock was hammered. And I've said this openly in the book, right? And today that CAGR has improved because, the last couple of years the growth has improved dramatically. So 23% was good enough and they've improved it further. But I want to see the unlisted space come in, execute, and then we can decide depending upon the valuation and, all things being equal. So if I get all 5 good managements, businesses are, somewhat similar. My third lever is the valuation. And if there is a significant delta between something which is much more expensive versus something which is cheaper. So Solara Hikal is a very recent example. Laurus, people have not seen the best of these companies to my knowledge. Again, I'm biased, but my biases are covered because my valuation entry or average cost is significantly lower than what the market is showing me. But when I first entered Laura somewhere around 2019 December, when it was not even $70, right? So my average is definitely not 70, but my initial investments are from that era, and I was prepared for a 10-year game even in 2019. So Laura's today is a very different animal compared to what it was in 2019. And looking at this trajectory or trend, 2029, by the time we get to 2029, Laura's will look very different from the kind of Laura's we see today. So we have to look at these businesses in blocks of 5 years. These are not quarter to quarter stories. These are not month by month stories. You have to play that patient game. And you don't have to invest in this sector if you don't have the patience. Maybe give your money to a mutual fund or elsewhere, and just continue with whatever is easy for you to understand. I'm not a scientist. I don't want to understand or invest any brain power in understanding the economics of a specific molecule. As long as I can trust the people and the people know how to manage uncertainty, I'm fine. So my bet is always on the management. Moving on to the next one, there's a question from Harsh Patel. What could be a major challenge for growth of Hikal and Solara? Neuland's management worked on floor, so they have major advantage to achieve one of the best FDA inspection record in India. Correct? Okay, so compliance is key. Rest will be followed if plant will work. Okay, I got the question. So he's saying that because Neuland, companies like Neuland and DVs have got scientists as the promoter, whereas Hikal and Solara are not, they will not be able to scale up, or they will find major hurdles, challenges, etc. So again, see, great question. Anecdotal evidence is mixed here. So Dilip Sanghvi was not a scientist. Is not a scientist. But Dr. Anji Reddy was a very good scientist. So again, you see the contrast. Sun Pharma, Dilip Sanghvi, one of the largest, today is the largest by market cap and sales company in India. Very successful. I'm not sure if you have read that book of The Reluctant Billionaire. It will take you inside the mind and thinking of Dilip Sanghvi in terms of how he used to think. Sales was very important, cash is very important, right? Typical Guju mentality. That's a great book. You should read it if you want to understand why or what it takes for a non-scientist. And again, there may be anecdote. It's a sampling error. I'm just taking one example. There may be thousands of other non-scientists who have failed to scale up, and there may be thousands of scientists who started a company and they failed to scale up. So the jury is out, basically. Coming to Neuland, so this is the same Neuland with the current chairman, Dr. D.R. Rao, that was printing excellent annual reports, doing earnings calls starting as early as 2016, and yet the stock was not moving as the earnings were not coming. So where were you then? Did you load up? Did you back up the truck? Did you buy Neuland at $100, 150, 200, 250, 300, 400? No. So everything from US FDA compliance culture to governance is pretty much the same as it ever was. Nothing has changed on that front. Only when the cash flow starts flowing, our perception changes. It's always the case. So we want to see the execution, and then there is a basic human psychology. We tend to find negatives when the stock is falling. And Twitter was full of negatives for Neuland in 2022 and even before. And we tend to find all great things when things are hunky-dory. So Neuland today, everything is fine. We are only interested in positives because that's the psychology. We should, to my mind, we should actually do the exact opposite of this. So if the stock has done brilliantly well over the last few years, the first question to ask should be, what can go wrong? And what are the negatives? Where are my blind spots now that the valuations are skyrocketing? And same for Suven, same for Divi's, chemical IPOs, right? Everyone was saying Clean Science is a great company. Of course it is a great company. Or what valuation? What could go wrong? A lot could go wrong, and a lot has gone wrong. Think in terms of the opportunity cost of capital for someone who invested in Ather or Tattva Chintan or Clean Science or Gland Pharma, so on and so forth, right? So be very pessimistic if this stock is doing well, and be very optimistic if this stock hasn't done well. Try to find the positives in a business where the valuations are reasonable. What can go right? Right? Hikal at 300, 350. What if something goes well here? Otherwise, these valuations are depressed anyway. So our downside is, yes, there is a family dispute, promoters are fighting, there is X, Y, and Z, something or the other is happening, and the stock is where it is. So now you expect the stock to be at 150, right? So think positive if this stock has not performed. Think negative. Try to be skeptical if this stock has done well in recent times. Try to be very skeptical with IPOs, Akum's as an example, right? Same, common sense. Because ultimately we as investors get rewarded for our judgment and nothing but our judgment. And judgment, the first and the foremost pillar of judgment is management. Business is second, a distant second. 99 is management. Business can be changed. A good management, a great management can change the business. A great business cannot change the management. Is the same old ARV company, is the same old Cipro Flex Sin company that Neuland is, right? So Solara today is largely known as an IBU player. If they execute well over the 5-7 years, it's all about execution, right? No one will remember Solara for IBU. So again, good management will ensure sustainability and governance. Never overthink and be engulfed in, those pessimistic thoughts if the news flow is bearish and the stock is lying low. And on the flip side, never feel smug and overconfident in a rising tide. A lot of money is lost when you become overconfident in a tailwind. A cyclical tailwind, you assume it's structural. And you miss those blind spots. So again, contrarian thinking, sort of. And then there's a thing, I've written about it in the book as well. There's an inside out and an outside in. So inside out is what capabilities and capacities the company can add to make a difference in this competitive landscape. And outside in is how the external environment is changing, biosecure, US elections, competitive dynamics, whatnot. And then you need to have your strategy, because strategy is the conduit or the connection between inside out and outside in. It kind of sits in the middle, so to speak, right? So you have to look at those attributes. Again, you have to do the hard work. You have to read the annual report. You have to read the transcripts across many businesses in the industry, and then decide, given the management, given the function. So it's a function. Valuation, margin of safety is a function of three things: management, business, and valuation. Valuation is least important because it's volatile. It will change tomorrow. Business is also less important because, as I said, great management can change the business. So it's the combination of these three things which give you the net margin of safety, figure 9.1 in the book, right? Margin of safety is a net. I mean, you could use any arithmetic operator. You can add these three together, give them different weights. It's up to you how you want to model your framework. In my framework, management is the critical factor. So if I'm buying something for 10 years, I'll make mistakes. We all will make. So that's why I'm having a portfolio. That's why I'm not having a one stock, right? That's why I'm not only having Loras. I'm having Syngene, I'm having Neuland, I'm having Divi's, I'm having Suvain. It's a collection, right? And Solara, Hikal, so on. Because I know I will not be right on all of them. People will remember my mistakes, but I need to think about what's good for me. And as a basket of these 5-6 assets, I know majority of them will surprise on the upside, and one or two will be an outlier. So I did not know that Neuland will be a 50 bagger sitting in 2019. I had no clue. This stock was 380 after I did the Alpha Series 18 in June 2020. I had no clue. So you don't know where this stock, our upside is unlimited. It's the downside that you need to worry about, not the upside. Enjoy the upside. It's unlimited. I mean, 100 rupees stock can go to 10,000. We have seen in the case of Neuland, right? But the downside is, how much is what if things go wrong? What if an IPO fails to deliver on promises? How much can you lose? Dishman Carbogen, another example, right? I attended the call today. What was the downside at 170, 180 bucks? It wasn't zero, but it was kind of, let's say 10%, 20%, whatever. So you have to always think from, how much can I lose? And we win by not losing. We are negative here, right? Invert, as Charlie Munger kept saying, invert, always invert. Okay. I think there's a related question I think I've already covered. So it's coming from Bharat Kundar. He's saying, what are your thoughts on the margin of safety in Dishman? You were critical of their execution. Oh yeah, I was. I'm still. And is evident for so many years. Yes, no prizes for guessing that. And do you see a turnaround from here? I mean, I'm an optimistic person, but I keep margin of safety left, right, and center. But again, as an investor, if you're not optimistic, you will unlikely make a big gain, right? So you have to be fundamentally. He's also, let me complete his question. He's saying, considering 0.5 times price to book and phase 3 pipeline. So phase 3 pipeline is a moving target. All molecules may fail. And none of them may fail. So we don't know. There is uncertainty. Only when the NDA is filed and approved and the molecule goes commercial, we get that certainty, right? So Orchid, as an example, there is no uncertainty. The molecule is live and approved. 0.5 times price to book for Dishman, I think, is a misnomer. There is a very large element of intangible. So I tend to look at the tangible book value. So on that basis, I think Dishman was about 1 times price to book as on maybe yesterday, if not today. Again, chapter 9, figure 9.1, net margin of safety. Then what else is there? So again, if they execute well from here on, you know, they can go places. There is absolutely no doubt about it. I mean, people were skeptical about Jubilant Pharmova once, right? I mean, Piramal Pharma, another example. If you execute, if you show the margins, if you show the earnings, if you follow the fiscal prudence, deleveraging the balance sheet, you do all the good things, sky's the limit. So that's on Dishman. But again, their track record is very poor, and I've said this many times. जो डिवीज का एक्सेप्शन है वो डिशमन का नॉर्म रहता है. 3-4 अच्छे क्वार्टर, देन दे फॉल बैक, राइट? सो दे कीप टॉगलिंग बिटवीन few good quarters and a long period of lull, whereas Divi's is opposite. Few bad quarters in a structurally consistent trend, something like PI Industries, right? So consistency के number हैं. Consistency is what matters. Let me see. The next question is right. Let me see. So there's a question from Yogesh Hosle. Question is how to control the emotions when you sell the stock and it went on to make new higher highs. E.g., I sold Neuland at 8,000. Congratulations. I'm assuming that you bought at 400, you sold at 8,000. That's a 20x adjusted for capital gains, taxes, etc., etc. Is still a 15-16 bagger, assuming that you bought at 400. See, the honest answer is all about your emotions and management's execution. If you find the business in a low cycle, at low valuations, and execution follows, you will make a hell lot of money. 30 bagger, 40 bagger. In case of Neuland, we have had 50 bagger in a jiffy. 5 years is nothing. I mean, people die to make 10x in 10 years. I can tell you that. There are large institutions, there are mutual funds. If you tell them that this stock will be 10x in 10 years, they will put a decent amount of allocation on that stock. So 10x in 10 years is a phenomenal outcome. And here we have Neuland Labs 50x in 5 years. But you cannot get advantage of today's news flow. The valuations are no longer. So Neuland was below 1 time book value. And the execution followed and we are where we are, right? So it's all about your emotions. So the point is what you did with that 8,000 minus the taxes. Maybe an alternate investment. Maybe that other stock that you switched from Neuland is not performing today, but maybe 3 years out, Neuland may be stagnating and that other stock may be 10x, 20x. Who knows? Randomness, right? So you can only control what you can control. You can book profit, you can go on a holiday, travel, experience, right? Or invest back that money in the next best available opportunity. It's up to you. And that available opportunity may not perform tomorrow because the stock doesn't know that you have bought that stock. But if you have got the time, if you've done your homework first of all, and if you've got the patience, you may be sitting on a 20 bagger today. It's just that you don't know that. Then the other thing is that unforced selling. So there's a forced selling. If I need the money, I will sell. I need the cash. But the unforced selling is a combination of several factors, as I said. So relative opportunity being one. So if I can go for a 4x in 2 years, where I may not get returns over the next 6 months, that's fine. And that may be acceptable. Or I will just trim a little bit and start building position in another stock and see how it goes. I never go in with a 5% allocation on day one, right? I start incrementally building. So if I'm really convinced about the management and the business and the valuation, we are in a 2-year long mature bear market. I may get something close to 1 time sales, 1 time book value. And in those situations, because my downside is protected or low, I may I may go with a 5% allocation on day one, and if the story starts unfolding, I can increase it to even 10%, 15%, because I'm I'm not answerable. It's my money, right? I can take it all the way to 20-25% if I want to. If I really like this story, I'm under no compulsion. But as a professional fund manager, you may not be having that flexibility, so it will be capped, right? But again, start small, low allocation. If you don't know what you don't know, keep reading. If you see the execution, if you see your thesis playing out, by all means increase your allocation. And now, let me see what else is there. And next question, interesting one. So I'm only taking the important questions, guys. There were far too many questions. There is one from Chart Maven. Says, besides the CDMO space, are you tracking any other listed small or mid-cap pharma company? Okay, small and mid-cap pharma company. Because I also track other sectors, so chemicals, even textile and consumer, because consumer is kind of facing a bit of a heat, so there may be few emerging opportunities in those pockets as well. But he's asking about so Chart Maven is asking about any small or mid-cap pharma company. And there is also a related question from Gotham. He says, what is your understanding on Makers Labs, Resonance and Bliss GVS? Which company has the better or niche technology and some understanding on the promoters as well? So none of these companies are doing any sort of active investor engagement. There are no earnings call. So annual report is your only sort of source of gospel, if you like. So I've read Bliss GVS annual report. I kind of like what they're doing. Again, it's a family promoter owned, so they've got both skin and soul in the game. Is the son-in-law, I think, who is now in charge. Dad had two daughters, and I think both are there in the business, or at least one of them is in the business. She's a doctor, if I'm not mistaken. And I think her husband is the current MD in Bliss. But again, there is very little data, so I will start with a small exposure. So I think stock was recently hammered all the way to 110, or approximately 125th of October. I remember that day. So maybe I'll go with an initial exposure, and I'll just try and see how it goes. Right. And they may start doing earnings call at a later stage. Who knows? The other companies, I mean, Makers and Resonance, so they are all disclosed. I mean, I have been holding both of them for a good 4 or 5 years. Again, they are kind of taken as an IPCA group company, but again, don't go by that narrative. Wait for execution. Makers has kind of shown some initial signs, maybe not. The annual report suggests that they have got some approvals from Russia, I think. Resonance, again, so Makers owns 50% in Resonance, and again, both are IPCA group company. So Makers is kind of the holding company, because they own about 45-50% in Resonance. Resonance is the pyridine number 2 player, if I may. Number 1, I think, is Jubilant Ingravia. So again, the potential is there. I mean, Neuland started with a 50 crore market cap. Who would have thought that, they will be here. Divi's, even better example. The IPO of Divi's came close to around 150 crore market cap. So 2003 or thereabout. Divi's का सेल था उस समय 250 crore. So it was below 1 time sale. Unimaginable, right? Even Syngene, I think, came around 5x 1 year forward in 2015 or where, so IPOs were much more reasonable back in the day. Not anymore. So again, but I'm not sure, about these companies or any small cap for that matter, because there's so little data. So I bet a smaller balance sheet should not be having high debt. So that's something I saw in Bliss GVS. They have got receivables again because it's kind of Africa-based business, but they recently got US FDA approval, and there is definite plan to improve their gross margin by targeting the US economy. It's a younger generation. I think the MD is just 41, ideal age, right? A lot of energy. So again, we'll see how they execute. If they execute well, I'm sure market will take notice, and we can always average up at a later stage. So yeah, connecting the dots basically, and it's always go small, lower allocation, and don't just allocate too much because you would find it difficult to track. The next question is, what are the risks of generic CMOs like Windlas? And can competition from China be a headwind for this? And again, the question may be on Windlas, but again, Innova, Captab, and Akum's the new IPO, they're all in the same sort of league. I'm invested in Windlas because I really like that management, but I'm invested from lower levels. But I think it's a very perfectly valid question. So here is a hypothetical scenario, guys. Again, I repeat the question is saying, what are the risks of generic CMOs like Windlas? Can competition from China be a headwind for this sector? So he's talking about Windlas, Combs, Innova, Captab, etc. So far, Chinese were focused on the exports, right? US and Europe. But if they find it difficult to penetrate US and Japan, geopolitics, China plus one, biosecure or whatever, all that capacity is still sitting in China. And what if they start a chemical type of a price war? And, the Indian formulation companies like Lupin and Sun, if they get a comparable quality at a fraction of a cost, why do you think they will not go for that option? Economics, right? So we have to be mindful of that. Again, it's a hypothetical scenario. I hope it doesn't play out, but if Windlass today is $1,000-$1,200, will you ignore that? I wouldn't. Right? So be cognizant. Again, if the stock has done well in the last year or 2 years, try and think of some negative scenarios. If the stock hasn't performed, try and be a bit more optimistic because there will be negative news flow. अरे बाबा negative news flow है तभी तो stock नहीं चल रहा है. तो don't try to double discount and overthink. If the stock hasn't done well, there will be negatives. You have to focus on the delta. What can change? What can change from this point? Because a bad company becoming fair is a 10-bagger, potentially. A bad company or where the perception is bad, becoming a good company could be 40x, 50x. Neuland Labs in a matter of just 4 or 5 years. Now the whole world wants them. They want to own, a piece of Neuland Labs. That wasn't the case. Definitely not. Even in 2022, no one had zero trust. Not an iota of trust. So been there, done that, right? And right. Okay. Let me see. There's too many questions. Maybe I'll take one or two more and then open it up because I know you guys have been patiently listening and I'm fed up of this monologue anyway. Question on Kopran. Oh, too many questions on Kopran. Far too many. So Manish Mathur and several other participants. Kopran ka kya karna hai? The stock has been hammered ever since they released the muted set of second quarter earnings, but I wasn't expecting great earnings from Kopran anyway because the Panoli plant is still not up and running. There are pre-production losses in that plant. Negative EBITDA, when you add that to the positive EBITDA unit, you get the blended margin, which is 9%, 10%, 12%, 14%, 15%, whatever. And Kopran is not the only example. There are many other companies, Solara being one. Their largest capacity is negative today, pre-production operating expenses. So from that perspective, I don't think, at least I wasn't expecting any great earnings from Kopran. My earliest expectation was, and I've said this before, was fourth quarter of this fiscal and going into FY26 with improvement. So again, if you are new, I would I would encourage you to use that quote unquote wedding invitation template. You wait not just for the Panoli plant getting started, getting final approvals. There have been back and forth, apply and then take it off because the government said, this is not, and this is not acceptable. You change, so they took it back, made changes, filed again from center to state to state to center. Is being a cat and mouse over the last 3 years probably, and I think the state approval is still pending. Um, but again, I'll use that wedding invitation template. I've explained this invitation template in detail previously, so won't spend time on that today. Wait for the first signal. Wait for the first signal of margin expansion. There is tremendous potential, but I want evidence. As a new investor, if I'm buying today at above 200, I've got every right to ask for evidence. And I started buying somewhere around $30. So my average in Kopran is really, really low, and I've had at least five good dividends along the way. So I'm not adjusting. When I say $30, it was, excluding those dividends. But my sincere advice to you would be, don't be petrified. If you own it, just wait and watch. It will be a learning. If nothing, it will be a learning. So have some sort of a mental stop loss, a round figure of, let's say, 200. If it starts settling in somewhere around 190, just cut your losses, maintain a log, note down why you bought that stock, and why you are selling it, and even continue to track it even after you sell, because you want to learn from your mistakes, right? And so, Neuland Labs as an example, the stock was 2800 in 2021. The same stock a year or 15 months later was near 1000. Same company, same compliance, everything, but the narrative was hyper pessimistic. The narrative was bullish in 2021 because the stock was doing well. The stock wasn't doing well in 2022. The narrative was negative. It happens. Same story, different stocks, same broken record. It keeps playing. Some more. Far too many questions. There's a question. How can I increase my knowledge about? So this coming from Dhruv Saraf. Any links, reports, videos to understand radio pharmacies and radio pharma? I mean, the world is your oyster. I mean, come on, guys. There's YouTube, there is Google. If you want to learn something, there is no dearth of opportunity. There's absolutely none. I think there are far too many questions. I think I've covered most of them. If I missed any, just remind me again. There's an interesting one here, so maybe I'll take this as the last one. So, question from interesting handle @530T. So at the rate 530T, the question is, there are 13,000 contract manufacturers in generic pharma in India. This is a space which will see consolidation going forward. Few small to large ones will benefit. Is it true? If yes, which ones will benefit? So again, the three ones are Akum, Windlas, and Innova, Captab. But imagine the China scenario that I just explained. Chinese players getting barred from entry, or US making it difficult for them to sell in the US, and Japan making difficult for them to sell in Japan. That capacity may come to India. So it's kind of, Hindi chini bhai bhai. They can sell at a fraction of a cost to the Indian formulators. What will happen then? But otherwise, the structurally is positive. Is unorganized to organized sector move, right? So quality, compliance, etc. all has to improve. And in that context, the organized sector, there is already enough evidence. The Indian pharmaceutical market is growing in single digit. These guys are growing in double digit. So they're gaining market share from somewhere. It's unorganized to organized move. So that's already playing out. Okay, so I think I've covered all that I could have. Let me just accept few requests and see if you've got any questions. So Nitin, I've added you. I'm adding you as well. Let's see how many questions we have, and then we can add more. So, guys, I don't know who wants to be first, whether it's you, Nitin, or Alvish. Just unmute and ask your question if you have something to contribute. Don't know. I'll ask Sagar Dave is the other one. I'll add as a speaker. If you have any questions, just send me a request and I'll accept you as a speaker. So, Sagar, you can unmute and ask your question.
Sure. Thank you so much, sir. Am I audible, sir?
Yeah, loud and clear. Perfect.
Yeah, sure. Sir, I think so. The Parthiban and the promoters are actually very much bullish regarding the view on the Kaplan Point Labs, right?
Mm-hmm.
The way you, sorry,
Go on. Kaplan Point.
right?
Promoters are
Yeah,
bullish, right? I got you.
yeah, promoters are very much bullish. And the way you told, the Captab and they are also trying to procure from the CDMO space from the China and going to have have it in have, is it it is going to get transferred into India by a fraction of a cost, and then they are going to send it to US. So it will be having a label of manufactured in India. So this is one way how they are going to reroute from the China to India and then to the US, right? And apart from it, they are also trying to foray into the CDMO space. Right. So, sir, I need your guidance in the Kaplan Point Labs regarding the CDMO space and also in the CMO space.
So I don't know. I've not followed Kaplan Point, and again, I would encourage you to follow the frameworks that I keep discussing. The stock Kaplan Point has done well because they have executed, but that's all past. If someone is
Yes.
buying, fresh at today's market price, you want, further traction. So again, when you talk about CDMO, I don't know whether it will probably be generic CDMO because that's the lower entry barrier, easy to set up and scale up. So Windlas, as an example, is also a generic CDMO. That may happen. It may not be very easy to import from China and relabel it because again, there may be regulations around it. I don't know how easy.
So, but sir, this is what actually they have actually told during the this recent con call.
Yeah, so that may or may not happen. Your job as an investor is to cross verify. So your soft signal should be out. Don't blindly trust what the management is telling you. Do your own due diligence and see if this valuation is making sense, and is Kaplan Point the best possible investment opportunity in the pharmaceutical space. That's the question you should be continuously asking. For how long, how much can I buy, and for how long? Those are the kind of questions, but you have to do your own homework. I mean, never take anything on the face value. Whether it's Laurus giving any guidance or whether it's any other company giving any guidance, doesn't matter. It's your job to do your own homework. गाइडेंस का
Agreed,
गाइडेंस का
sir.
क्या करना है,
Agreed.
मैनेजमेंट का तो काम ही वही है, वो तो एक स्टॉक लिए हुए हैं, दे आर प्लेइंग कॉन्सेंट्रेटेड, सो इट्स इन देयर.
No, but I totally agree, sir. But the thing is, this management walks the talk,
हाँ तो
right?
वेट तो
I
हाँ तो
don't I am unable
करेक्ट
to comment on the other management, but
करेक्ट
this management walk the talk,
करेक्ट.
and this is a history that has been
हाँ तो
given since
दैट इज
last.
एन
I think so.
एविडेंस, दैट इज एन
I'm
एविडेंस.
Yeah, and I'm invested since last three and a half years, right? And management walks the talk, so that is why I'm asking. Probably you must be tracking, so I just need your guidance
नहीं,
regarding the
मैंने
management
मैंने
and.
मैंने पॉजिटिव ही सुना है कैप्लिन का, and they have done well. See, the proof of pudding is in eating, right? If you look at their margins over the years, they've been very consistent with their margins. Not just margins, I see cash flow has improved. So another thing that I look at, guys, is if you go to screener, if you look at cash from operating activities, Kaplan Point was under 100 crores in 2015-16, and now they are in the vicinity of 300 crore and above. So the cash from operations have improved. Again, it's a sign of execution. and there is consistency. So again, they have done well. If I give you another perspective, because you are asking, I don't track this business, but I'll give you a ballpark. Price to book is 6, not bad for this kind of an execution, if I'm honest. Price to sales is 8, probably on the higher side. Those who follow me, those who know me, they will understand what I mean. So 8x is not the kind of my entry. I prefer 3x, 4x kind of. Um, and I'm getting those kind of opportunities today. So price to sales is slightly on the higher side, if I'm completely honest. Price to book is fine. Cash flows are fine. Margins are fine. And you have been invested for 3-4 years. And as you said, and rightly so, they have been executing. So maybe take it with a pinch of salt, and continue to track, and any sort of hurricane, which is market wide correction in this stock, maybe you could use that, to add more. But yeah, I wish you all the best.
Sure, sure, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
No worries, no worries. Okay. Who else is there? I thought I sent you a ad as a speaker, Alvish. I don't know. It's kind of showing as, yeah. Alvish, can you unmute and ask? Fine. Finally. So if I'm not mistaken, you live somewhere in the Nordic region.
Oh my God. Yes, yes, thank you.
No,
You,
as I said before, I read all replies.
yes, 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 you do, and you reply to my tweets as well. So thank you very much, sir. Huge fan, huge fan. Uh,
Thank you, thank you.
I'm a part of medical device industry, and hence a very vested interest in pharma biotechs space in general, right? So, but I wanted to know your view. I keep looking for medical devices company in India. What's the scene around? But very seldom I could find the data, right? I mean, mostly there are some companies like Nureka and stuff, but primarily, right?
No, no, not Nureka. Not Nureka is a medical device. I think this Polymedicure is the one, probably the best one.
Yeah,
At a much smaller scale, I think Morpin is also doing some medical devices. But again, pedigree of Polymedicure is a proven one. They have executed over the years. Beth साहब ने अच्छा काम किया है.
sure.
Valuation भी अच्छी है. But
Mm-hmm.
I think those are the companies. There will be more coming in the listed space for sure. There's a lot of traction happening in and around Hyderabad in the manufacturing of. So it won't just be Polymedicure and Morpin. There will be other for
Uh-huh.
sure.
Okay. But is there any chance maybe you could suggest some literature or something I could?
Again, annual reports, yeah, there's very underrated kind of. Most companies disclose what they're doing. There's Google, there's YouTube, there's a vast array of information. And DRHPs, there will be IPOs coming for sure. So DRHP is a great source. The DRHP of Solara, मुझे नहीं पता कितने लोगों ने पढ़ी है. They recently came with a rights offer, and there's a DRHP.
Yes, yes,
So,
yes.
so again, those, the more you read, the better your understanding.
Oh,
There is no shortcut.
yeah, absolutely, sir. So I keep doing my bits and search, but thank you very much for for taking me and answering the question.
No problem.
I would very much like to invite you for a dinner if you are in Copenhagen. There are very good
Sure, sure,
restaurants over here. Yes.
sure. My
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you. Anyone?
Hello,
Hello? Hi, Aniket.
sir. Big fan here.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Sir, I just wanted to ask a general question about the book. If I
Hmm.
may ask, I don't want to sway away from the objective of this space.
Sure, sure. Fire away.
Sir, I consider myself as a beginner in the markets. I have been following like a lot of companies since last 2 years, but I just wanted to ask what is the best way to read your book because I'm finding it quite difficult where some words are very complex for me right now. So
Sure,
just
sure.
wanted to ask
Yeah.
what would be the best way?
There is there is no best way to read a boring book, if I'm completely honest. My sense is, if you
It's
skip
not
the
boring,
initial
sorry
few
sir. It's
chapters,
very interesting.
yeah, if you skip the initial few chapters, the moment you get to something like a chapter 6, 7, and 8, it will start coming together. It all kind of joins in section 2 and section 3. And the most relevant picture, so just follow the pictures. I'll give you one. The best one I like in that book is the 10.1, right at the end. So chapter 10 is a summary of everything, and there is a picture. I'm looking at it as I speak. It's about anti-fragility is the desired direction. It's not the destination. Is the direction in a world which is uncertain, lumpy, and unpredictable. You need to see attributes that can sustain a business, because a business that sustains grows. You need margin of safety. You need to have sort of your own framework, bricolage, right? And you must invest in businesses that have got multiple optionality, because many things will fail, and that doesn't matter. We only want 1 or 2 car XT success. Yeah. So
Understood.
that 10.1 or chapter 10 is just a summary. So maybe start with chapter 10 and see if it's making sense. The initial chapters, especially chapter 3, is a difficult one. If I'm
Yeah, I'm right there right now.
chapter 3 is because I'm just trying to use Peter Thiel's 0 to 1 to see, how the pharmaceutical world, because he wrote that book somewhere around 2012 or from his lectures, right? And the world has moved on. The artificial intelligence and machine learning are creating a serious impact. And I'm just trying to, if you look at the last hypothesis, is around that machine learning, artificial intelligence. So that probably is an outlier, if I'm completely honest. Chapter 4 and 5 are fundamental because you need to appreciate the risk of,
Mm-hmm.
investing in this space, because the molecule will fail and all that money is down the drain. So that base building chapters are chapter 4 and 5. If chapter
Okay.
3 is difficult for you, just skip it. It won't make, a significant difference. But that would be my advice. There are also a lot of podcasts. I do these podcasts quite frequently. So go to my pinned Twitter handle and then just help yourself.
Yes, sir. I have watched almost everything. I've just been waiting for reading the whole book and then listening to the podcast which in accidental investor posted on YouTube
Sure. I mean,
about the
so
question and
I'm
answers.
reasonably active. If you find something which you are completely not understanding, just underline that. Take a picture. Tag me. I'll try and help out as best as I can.
Sounds good, sir. Thank you so much for being here on
No
Twitter.
problem.
That's all I
No
can say.
problem. Thank you.
Thank you
Bye
so
bye.
much.
Yes. Hello.
Yeah. Hi, Vishal. I can hear you.
Yes. Hi, sir. Hi, sir. First of all, thanks for being a guide to us.
No. I'm also learning. So your questions, you guys ask so carefully crafted questions. I learn more than you guys do. So it's a give and take.
सर बिल्कुल सर्कल ऑफ कॉम्पिटेंस में सीखा ही आपसे हूँ. मैं इससे पहले मैं किसी भी
अरे
सेक्टर
thank
में
you.
कुछ भी लेता था, बट आपको फॉलो करने के बाद आई थॉट कि हाँ एक
Thank you.
सर्कल
Thank
ऑफ
you.
कॉम्पिटेंस होना चाहिए. तो सर मेरा क्वेश्चन एक्चुअली ये था, छोटा सा क्वेश्चन है हिकल के बारे में कि ये जो द फ्यूड बिटवीन बाबा कल्याणी एंड हिरमत, कैन दिस dent the story? I mean, the company is doing good. We can see from the results and management commentary, but
हाँ नहीं, मैं
can
क्वेश्चन
that...
समझ गया. ये क्वेश्चन मैंने एड्रेस किया हुआ है पिछली पॉडकास्ट में, आपसे शायद या तो मिस हुआ. तो देखो,
Okay.
मानो आप हिरामत फैमिली हो, मैं बाबा कल्याणी हूँ. मेरे पास 35% स्टेक है, आपके पास भी 35% स्टेक है. मैं कह रहा हूँ मुझे कंपनी दे दे, जबकि मैं एक्टिव हूँ नहीं, मैं किसी कॉल में नहीं आता हूँ, मेरा कोई लेना देना नहीं, मुझे फार्मा का पी भी नहीं पता, फिर भी मैं आपको बोलूंगा कि आप मुझे कंपनी दे दो. उसका रीजन ये है कि जब आप मुझे 35% दे दोगे, मेरे पास 70% हो जाएगा, एंड देन आई कैन सेल इट टू अ प्राइवेट इक्विटी at whatever valuation you can imagine, right? So that's my interest. Another option or exit option for Baba Kalyani could be, and I've said this before, that they can sell their stake 35% to a strategic buyer. It will be a win-win. I don't think it will re-rate this stock, if I'm completely honest, because if a strategic buyer comes in and they can add more value, right? So KKR as an example, if they can buy out that. So there is again, इतना random space है. वही मैं बोलता हूँ ना कि इतना वाइल्ड रैंडमनेस हो सकता है. There, and these are just two scenarios. There are umpteen number of possibilities here. So maybe we tend to overthink a lot.
maybe.
I don't know. देखते हैं, because ultimately it's the asset, right? Asset, to my knowledge, Hikal 4-5 years out should look materially different from what it is today. Fingers crossed.
I mean, management is very important, as you have said. तो
नहीं, वो जैसे मैंने उनकी नियत दे ना, I jumped on to the second question. They stopped me because they wanted to clarify, not for my sake. I know agro का plant में pharma नहीं बनता and vice versa. They wanted to make sure that it's kind of recorded in the transcript for future. Again, talks loudly about the integrity. अभी और क्या चाहिए यार?
करेक्ट. थैंक यू सर. एंड ये स्पेसेस करते रहना बिल्कुल. आई मीन इसको
जब तक है जान, जब तक है जान.
थैंक यू सर.
बाय बाय.
नमस्ते सजल सर.
नमस्कार मनीष जी, नमस्कार.
सर कैसे हैं आप? मेरा सवाल ये प्रोमोटर इंटीग्रिटी और पीई के राउंड में ही है. सो बहुत दिनों बाद मैं नारायणा का कॉल पढ़ रहा था और वहां पे मतलब उन्होंने कहा कि मतलब हम जैसे ही मतलब we don't just want to expand randomly into tier 2 and tier 3 cities because demand is not as good as it might be in a tier 1, right? और फिर वो अपना SaaS भी थोड़ा बहुत बना रहे हैं अपना अंदर में, जो उनका इंटरनल ईआरपी उन्होंने बनाया आत्मा, और एक कुछ एआई मॉडल भी वो बनाते हैं. सॉरी मैं उसका नाम भूल रहा हूँ. और फिर वो इंश्योरेंस में भी एक्सपेंड कर रहे हैं. तो ये जो थोड़ा उनका कंजर्वेटिव ग्रोथ मॉडल है, मुझे तो ठीक लगता है. और मुझे कभी कभी लगता है कि ये प्रोमोटर ओन्ड एंड प्रोमोटर लेड कंपनीज जो न्यूलैंड में भी केस था, काफी अच्छा काम कर रहे हैं. और मतलब एटलीस्ट एज अ पर्सन हु इज जस्ट रीडिंग फ्रॉम बिहाइंड द स्क्रीन, मुझे लगता है कि वो लोग काफी एथिकल हैं, गिवन देवी शेट्टीज रिकॉर्ड एंड थिंग्स लाइक दैट.
कोविड में वैक्सीन का वो फायदा नहीं उठाया था. कई हॉस्पिटल्स ने, अब छोड़ो नाम क्या लेना, लूट मचाई हुई थी. सो नारायणा वाज इन दैट लीग फॉर श्योर. सो या एथिकल है, नो डाउट.
राइट. तो ये गिवन कि ये नंबर ऑफ बेड्स वाला गेम बहुत तेजी में चल रहा है और वो प्राइवेट इक्विटी आकर के
डजंट मैटर द नंबर ऑफ बेड्स. ये जो है ना आरपॉब और ये सब आउट पेशेंट होता है, सुबह आया शाम को निकल गया. नंबर ऑफ बेड्स का क्या करोगे? एक बेड में 3 पेशेंट आ जाएंगे ना 8-8 घंटे की शिफ्ट में. ये सब बेकार की, ये पुरानी मैट्रिक हुआ करती थी. अरे मैनेजमेंट को भी तो ये सब पता है. हम और आप दिमाग में अपनी ब्रेन पावर खर्च कर रहे हो. आपको लग रहा है कि शेट्टी साहब को ये सब नहीं पता? अरे चैंपियन लोग हैं ये लोग. जहां हम आज सोच नहीं पा रहे हैं, ये वहां ऑलरेडी बैठे हुए होंगे. एनुअल रिपोर्ट में तो ये वो डालते हैं जो इनको पब्लिक को बताना है.
राइट.
अभी 50 ऑप्शनैलिटी और होंगी पाइपलाइन में जो अभी शेयर नहीं कर रहे हैं पब्लिक डोमेन में.
हाँ, वो कह रहे थे कि वो अपना सॉफ्टवेयर दूसरों को दे तो रहे हैं, बट ऐसे नॉट फॉर अ मनी, दे जस्ट ट्राइंग इट आउट. एंड वो होता नहीं कि आदत लगवा रहे हैं लोगों को यूज करने की, ताकि बाद में बेच सकें.
वही तो एज एन इन्वेस्टर हमें लगता है कि हम लोगों ने थोड़े से कुछ शेयर्स लेके हम ज्यादा वरीड हो जाते हैं बिजनेस के लिए. यू बेट दैट इज व्हाई आई से ना 99% इज द मैनेजमेंट. एक ढंग के मैनेजमेंट को ढंग की वैल्यूएशन पे पैसा दे के छोड़ दो.
राइट. तो फिर ये केयर वाले जो आ रहे हैं एस्टेडियम के साथ मिलाकर के, ये 3,000 बेड 5,000 बेड, मतलब कितने बेड बनाएंगे साउथ में पता नहीं. और प्लस साउथ इज लाइक ओवर क्राउडेड दिस पॉइंट इन टाइम. ऐसा लग रहा है जैसे हॉस्पिटल्स की बरसात हो रही है साउथ में, किम्स एंड ऑल सबको मिला के. फिर कोई केरला में 3-4 हजार हॉस्पिटल बना रहा है, ऐसा कुछ तो बेड्स का.
तो देखो हॉस्पिटल में कई सारे हॉस्पिटल्स हैं इंडिया में जो 35-40% कैपेसिटी पे काम कर रहे हैं. and some of them are in kind of break even. अगेन हॉस्पिटल की जो आपकी कॉस्ट है ना, वो डिपेंड करता है ऑपरेशनल एफिशिएंसीज का फंक्शन है उसमें. आप 40% ऑक्यूपेंसी पे भी ब्रेक इवन कर सकते हो, आप 35% पे भी कर सकते हो. और आप हो सकता है कि आपको 55% ऑक्यूपेंसी चाहिए टू ब्रेक इवन, बिकॉज योर इंटरनल कॉस्ट एफिशिएंसीज आर अ बिग फैक्टर. बट हाँ, और अच्छा है हॉस्पिटल्स में कैपेसिटी यार. कल को कोई प्रॉब्लम हुई कंट्री में तो अच्छा है कैपेसिटी होनी चाहिए.
Right. And sorry, sir, piggybacking on your spaces, advice to everyone: please buy a health insurance. जब मैं नौकरी नहीं करता था मेरी मदर को डेंगू हो गया था एंड आई कुड नॉट गेट अ हॉस्पिटल बेड इन अपोलो बिकॉज वन इट वाज एक्सपेंसिव एंड आई डिड नॉट हैव एन इंश्योरेंस। और तब मुझे समझ में आया कि कितना जरूरी है प्राइवेट इंफ्रा का होना, क्योंकि गवर्नमेंट में स्पेस ही नहीं था या फिर क्वालिटी नहीं थी। सो डू गेट अ हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस गाइस। थैंक यू सर, थैंक यू सर।
नो वरीज, you're welcome. थैंक यू। चलो भाई, एक दो और क्वेश्चन। आई थिंक व्हाट टाइम इज इट? आई थिंक इट्स अप्रोचिंग व्हाट 1 o'clock इन इंडिया और समथिंग। हाँ भाई, कोई किसी का क्वेश्चन है? ये इनोसेंट दादा, हमने आपका वो N-1 तो आंसर कर दिया है। और कौन है ये? अरे इलॉन मस्क साहब भी क्वेश्चन पूछना चाह रहे हैं quickly. So I'm adding as much as I can, and I've got about 15-20 minutes, so just fire away. हाँ, दीप जी, हम आपको सुन पा रहे हैं, आप बोलिए।
Yeah. Hello sir, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
पहले तो सर एक लर्निंग आपसे जो मिली उसके लिए थैंक यू सो मच. Like in last space you have shared one multiple that is EV EBITDA, and due to that only learning I saved myself from jumping into Akum and saved my friend as well.
वंडरफुल। लेकिन किसी एक रेशियो पे ज्यादा ऑब्सेशन नहीं करना। ईवी एबिटा इज अ गुड रेशियो व्हेन सीन इन कंजंक्शन विद प्राइस टू बुक एंड प्राइस टू सेल्स, एंड अबव ऑल वो रेशियो कौन जनरेट कर रहा है, उस रेशियो के पीछे आत्मा किसकी है? मैनेजमेंट। नो रेशियो इज गुड इफ द मैनेजमेंट इज बैड।
एक्चुअली उसमें थोड़ा सा टेक्निकली थोड़ा सा कुछ डिफिकल्टी भी था अकॉर्डिंग टू द सम सॉफ्टवेयर ओवर स्क्रीनर और एनीथिंग एल्स. सो बाकी उसका मैनेजमेंट इंटरव्यू में भी रिसेंटली मिला तो दे हैव सेड दैट फ्लैट रेवेन्यू ग्रोथ एंड लाइक ऑलमोस्ट नो रेवेन्यू ग्रोथ एंड लोअर मार्जिन्स, सो दैट आल्सो हेल्प.
हाँ,
एंड
तो देखो, मेजॉरिटी ऑफ आईपीओ से इन्वेस्टमेंट बैंकर, मर्चेंट बैंकर का काम ही यही है, उसको चमका के बेचना। वो वही करते हैं, आपको देखना है। देयर विल बी अ रेयर डीमार्ट कमिंग आउट ऑफ इट। तो आप उसका एग्जांपल दोगे कि हमने आईपीओ में नहीं, आप बोलते हो आईपीओ में नहीं लगाना, हमने डीमार्ट मिस हो गया। अरे बाबा, नौ जो तुम्हारे बचे, क्लीन साइंस, एथर, तत्व चिंतन, उसके बारे में भी तो कभी बोलो।
सर एक्चुअली मैंने अपने एक फ्रेंड को बोला भी था लाइक फ्रॉम योर लर्निंग्स कि लाइक ये जो फ्रेंजी आईपीओ जिस तरह का है तो मे बी जंप आफ्टर द 50% करेक्शन. तो
या टाइम करेक्शन 3-4 साल का एग्जीक्यूशन देख के लेंगे यार, महंगा ले लेंगे यार।
सर वन अनदर क्वेश्चन, मतलब आपका एक स्टैंस चाहिए था कि आयोडीन डेरिवेटिव बिजनेस पे. वन ऑफ द कंपनी आई एम स्टडीइंग right now it's Infineum Pharmachem. I've gone through the last con call as well. They have good like subsidiary or some joint venture overseas in USA. They are like using salt water and extracting iodine, which is of 99% pure grade, and they have some kind of a patented process as well. I was studying and like I just wanted to know your overview on it, if possible, if you have a study or a one.
नहीं यार, मैंने वही देना, इतने यहाँ 100-200 धंधे कहाँ तक जा के एनुअल रिपोर्ट और ट्रांसक्रिप्ट पढ़ोगे? जो अपने वाले हैं उन्हीं को, मतलब हर 4 क्वार्टर में वो 4 ट्रांसक्रिप्ट आ जाती है न्यूलैंड से लेके और दुनिया भर की, तो उतने में ही सांस फूल जाती है। नो आइडिया।
Okay sir, that's it.
थैंक यू।
Hello, hello Sajal sir, can you hear me?
हाँ मनोज साहब, हम सुन पा रहे हैं आपकी आवाज।
Yeah, huge silent fan of yours, Sajal sir. Benefited tremendously from your recommendations. Bought Neuland starting from 700 to 1100 level, and
अरे कमाल है।
still holding. One of the still
holding,
largest holding in my portfolio. Yeah.
Wow.
So and even bought similar Loras at that time too. So invested 5% in Neuland, which is now at 30% current portfolio holding in that range. And booked and booked 1/3 around 11. Booked partially 1/3 around at 11,000. So my question was on Neuland. Sajal sir,
हेलो, हाँ बोलिए।
particularly, following you during Q1 and Q2, you were slightly like expecting a little subdued results, and they performed excellently
हाँ
in Q1, and Q2 has been slightly subdued. How do you see it like
हाँ
over the next 2-3 years, where it is in terms of everything in the pipeline and the US biosecure hype and everything around going on?
हाँ
Where do you see
FI
Newland in 2-3 years?
FI26 के एंड में बात करते हैं। लेट FI26 प्ले आउट, फिर बात करते हैं। स्टॉक इज एट हाई, सो ज्यादा पॉजिटिव बोलने के से मुझे डर लगता है, बट लेट्स वेट फॉर FI26 टू प्ले आउट। इतना ही बोलूंगा।
So it is still a hold, or it is
100%।
keep
आई मीन
booking
सी
out because
होल्ड, देखो होल्ड ट्रेम, और मैं मुझे स्टॉक का नहीं पता कल को 50% गिरेगा। मैं बिजनेस का व्यू बता रहा हूँ, प्योरली बिजनेस विल डू सिग्निफिकेंटली बेटर नेक्स्ट फिस्कल एंड इवन इन FI27। स्टॉक को जो मार्केट को करना है उसको
okay,
करने दो। डोंट गेट टू हंग अप ऑन दी स्टॉक प्राइस, वो किसी को नहीं
okay.
पता।
Thank you very much. And again,
नो प्रॉब्लम।
huge fan,
बट
huge silent fan. I'm not that
नहीं,
vocal, but
बड़ा अच्छा
huge
लगा यार,
silent
कुछ
fan of
लॉन्ग टर्म
yours.
शेयर होल्डर ढूंढने से नहीं मिल रहे हैं मार्केट में, तो अच्छा लगा। वेल डन,
Thank you.
कॉन्ग्रेचुलेशंस। ओके, नेक्स्ट वन प्लीज। एनीवन?
हेलो।
हाँ जी, मस्त साहब।
हाँ सर, सर
हम
बोल रहा
आपके
था।
हम आपके प्लेटफॉर्म पे स्पेसिस कर रहे हैं, हमारा सौभाग्य।
थैंक यू सर।
बताइए।
सर सर
पहले तो आप एक अपना इंट्रोडक्शन दे दीजिए।
सर मैं सर इन्वेस्ट कर रहा हूँ सर। मेरा सर मेनली फोकस रहता है ईएमएस में सर।
नहीं, पहले नाम तो बता दीजिए।
सर मेरा नाम ऐसे, मेरा ओरिजिनल नेम सर विकास है।
अच्छा, हाँ,
मेरा
ओरिजिनल ही चाहिए था भैया, पासपोर्ट वाला।
हाँ सर। तो मैं सर अभी इन्वेस्ट करता हूँ सर, ईएमएस में कर रहा हूँ सर। इलेक्ट्रॉनिक मैन्युफैक्चरिंग मेरा वो
किसमें इन्वेस्ट कर रहे हैं?
इलेक्ट्रॉनिक मैन्युफैक्चरिंग सेक्टर है सर, वो
हाँ
जो
हाँ,
है
बढ़िया।
अच्छा मेरा वहाँ पे। हाँ, वो
हाँ
अच्छा
हाँ,
भी कर रहा है। और उसके बाद सर अभी जो आपसे जब मतलब आपका जो ट्वीट्स वगैरह देख के सर, वो सीडीएमओ में भी अच्छा मतलब कुछ नॉलेज हुआ है सर। तो यहाँ पे सर ये एकम ड्रग जो न्यू लिस्ट हुई थी कंपनी, वो अभी पूरा गिर गई है
हाँ।
सर। अभी गिर के आईपीओ प्राइस के नीचे भी आ गई है। तो ऐसा मतलब आप जो बोलते हैं रिस्क एंड रिवार्ड देखना चाहिए, मतलब वैल्यूएशन देखना चाहिए, जो आपका हमेशा रहता है कि एक सही दाम पे चीज लेना है। तो आपको क्या
जी
लगता है कि ये क्या एक वैल्यू आ रहा है कि और वेट करना चाहिए? मतलब मैं
नहीं,
जब
मुझे नहीं पता। देखो, वैल्यू इज अ फंक्शन ऑफ डीआरएचपी में क्या है, मैनेजमेंट की क्या आगे की 5 साल की क्या सोच है, और चाइना का क्या एंगल होगा, जो हमने अभी डिस्कस किया ना, सीडीएमओ, डोमेस्टिक सीडीएमओ को लेके। देखो, चाइना कार एक्सटी में नहीं घुस पाएगा क्योंकि वहां सब पेटेंटेड है, यूएस जा रही है वो, लेकिन चाइना वहां घुस सकता है जहां पे प्राइस पे बात हो रही है। सो इंडियन मार्केट इज अ वेरी प्राइस सेंसिटिव मार्केट। कि आप कह रहे हो मैं कॉस्ट एफिशिएंट प्लेयर हूं, मैं 1 रुपए की दवाई दूंगा सन फार्मा को, और मैं पहुंच जाऊं सन फार्मा के बाद मैं 75 पैसे में दूंगा, ठीक है। फिर चौबे जी गए कि मैं 98 में दे दूंगा, तो फिर प्राइस तो तोड़ने पे आ जाओ, तो फिर वो तो एक बहुत डर्टी गेम हो जाता है ना। वो अगर चाइना से वो कैपेसिटी गलत आ गई, वो सब तो पता नहीं अभी। तो दूसरा, जो एक गलती जो अकुम्स ने करी थी, एंड आई एम नॉट ब्लेमिंग देम, उन्होंने एक बहुत ही खराब एपीआई प्लांट एक्वायर किया था नॉर्थ इंडिया में। एक पैराबोलिक ड्रग्स करके कंपनी थी, वो इनको नहीं करना चाहिए था। क्योंकि जो मेरी विंडलस से बात हुई थी, तो मैं उनका जो माइंडसेट पढ़ रहा था प्रोमोटर्स का, तो मेरी यही बात हुई उनसे। तो उन्होंने यही कहा कि सजल, मेजोरिटी ऑफ इंडिया में जो प्लांट है, एंड आई एग्री, वो इस हालत में ही नहीं है कि आप उनको एक्वायर करो, क्योंकि कंप्लायंस इज ऑलवेज बाय डिजाइन। कहीं एफ्लुएंट नहीं होगा, कुछ जगह ही नहीं है, आप कहाँ पे एफ्लुएंट ट्रीटमेंट करोगे, वो छोटे से कंपाउंड में बनी हुई है। तो मेजॉरिटी ऑफ कंपनीज जो हैं इस तरीके की इंडिया में, उनको बंद करना ही मेरे हिसाब से राइट डिसीजन होगा। वो लैंड वहां खाली करके बिल्डर को दे दो, 4-5 प्लॉट को मिला के शायद कोई एक कंपनी बनाई जा सके वहां पे, ग्रीन फील्ड। तो ये प्रॉब्लम है। बाकी मुझे इन्वेस्ट नहीं करना होता आईपीओ में, मैंने जाके डीआरएचपी में माथा खपाया नहीं है, बट आपकी जो सीडीएमओ की अंडरस्टैंडिंग है, मे बी इज ऑन द जेनेरिक साइड. जेनेरिक सीडीएमओ के डायनेमिक्स, वो प्राइस सेंसिटिव मार्केट होता है, सिंगल डिजिट मार्जिन में काम करते हैं ये लोग. ओरल में डबल डिजिट है, इंजेक्टेबल्स में ब्लेंडेड मार्जिन आपको दिखेंगे. तो अब आप वेट करोगे, मेरे हिसाब से वेट करो. इसमें प्राइवेट इक्विटी भी थी, उन्होंने कुछ ऑफलोड किया है, तो देखो आईपीओ रिस्की तो होता ही है इसी वजह से.
हाँ हाँ, इसलिए मैंने आईपीओ को टाइम में इन्वेस्ट नहीं
बहुत
किया था.
कम आईपीओ होते हैं जो सिंजीन जैसे ऊपर ही ऊपर जाते हैं. ₹125 का आईपीओ दिया था, मुझे आज भी याद है. 250 का आया था, उस पे एक बोनस आया तो ₹125 का आईपीओ था. आज वो स्टॉक ₹900 का है. 2015 अगस्त में आया है आईपीओ. और
अच्छा सर
हाँ,
मैं एक चीज और जानना चाहता हूँ
बोलिए.
आपसे. सर एक तो है कि जो मैं देखता हूँ कि इंडिया बेस्ड जो फार्म एक्सपोर्ट करती है यूएस को, तो उसमें जैसे कि सर आपका उसमें एक हमेशा खतरा रहता है एफडीए का, कि कब एफडीए वाले आके कुछ
नहीं,
आपका
वो खतरे की तरह नहीं होता है. वो भाई एफडीए तो अपना काम कर रहा है, ठीक है. थोड़ी सी उसमें किसी भी ऑडिट में ना एक बायसिंग होती है, एक सब्जेक्टिविटी होती है. एफडीए के 3 इंस्पेक्टर अलग अलग प्लांट में एक ही समय जाएंगे, सेम प्लांट है एग्जैक्टली. वो 3 ऑडिटर्स जो है वो डिफरेंट ऑडिट हो सकता है लेके आए, डिस्पाइट बीइंग उनके पास गाइडलाइंस है, सब कुछ है. वो ह्यूमन जजमेंट परसेप्शन वो होता ही होता है. तो हर यूएस एफडीए ऑडिट को सक्सेसफुल है, आप ये नहीं मान सकते कि वो कंपनी बिल्कुल ही बढ़िया है. और हर अनसक्सेसफुल ऑडिट को आप ये भी नहीं कह सकते कि वो कंपनी चोर है. इट्स ऑलवेज अ ग्रे एरिया.
बट सर इन द मीन टाइम
यूएस एफडीए का होना अच्छा है. सो इमेजिन करो यूएस एफडीए नहीं होगा, आपको मैं अपने घर में बना के इंजेक्शन आपको दूंगा, आप लोगे क्या?
नो सर, ये तो मैं समझ रहा हूँ सर, बट फॉर बिकॉज सर मैं भी याद है कि एक बार डिवीज जो था, डिवीज एक्स में 1500
हुआ है 2017 में डिवीज के संग भी
तो
हुआ
उस
था.
टाइम में
बहुत
सर
मेजर,
डिवीज
देखो वो बहुत मेजर चैलेंज था. डिवीज नहीं बच पाते उससे. द रीजन डिवीज बचे वो भी समझना इम्पोर्टेंट है. डिवीज के पार्टनर ने डिवीज के लिए फाइट किया, ठीक है.
तो सर
वो आपको पास क्लाउड होना चाहिए कि भाई वो यूएस एफडीए से और पार्टनर उड़ के आया फ्लाइट पकड़ के डिवीज के साथ, सब रेक्टिफाई किया. तो वो पार्टनरशिप मॉडल बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट होता है. अभी जैसे आप बायोकॉन का केस लो, बायोकॉन का पार्टनर था वायट्रिस, वो पार्टनर को उन्होंने खुद ही ले लिया. अब बायोकॉन, आप जानो आपका काम जाने. सो बायोकॉन इज एज गुड एज अ सन फार्मा और अ ल्यूपिन, खुद ही का फ्रंट एंड है. कोई पार्टनर का कुछ इंटरेस्ट तो है नहीं, तो पार्टनर आपके लिए क्यों फाइट करेगा? वेयर एज इन अ सीडीएमओ मॉडल, एक से आपके पास 50 इनोवेटर हैं, वो 50 खड़े हो जाएंगे यूएसएफडीए के सर पे कि भाई मेरी तो जमानत जब्त हो गई, मेरी सांसें रुक गई, तूने क्या कर दिया है इसके प्लांट में.
ओके.
ठीक है.
यस सर, इंडियन कंपनी है लाइक क्वालिटी फार्मा एंड मार्क्सन फार्मा
नहीं, कोई आइडिया नहीं. मार्क्सन ठीक है, मार्क्सन का स्टॉक चल भी गया है बहुत. क्वालिटी का मुझे कोई आइडिया नहीं.
मैं ये सब कंपनी का एक्चुअली देखता हूँ सर कि दे आर मेनली फोकस्ड ऑन द लैटिन अमेरिकन कंट्री. लैटिन अमेरिका में
लैटिन अमेरिका इज अ गुड मार्केट, लेकिन वहां भी एक समय क्राउडेड हो जाएगा ना.
वहां पर लोग अच्छा कर रहे हैं.
हाँ, लैटिन अमेरिका में भी ब्राजील इज अ हायर एंट्री बैरियर. कौन सी कंट्री है लैटिन अमेरिका में, वो भी इम्पोर्टेंट है.
ब्राजील वगैरह में लोग कर रहे हैं, तो वो लोग अच्छा मतलब, बट एफडीए का फैक्टर वहां पे नहीं है, तो थोड़ा सा हम लोग को भी सेफ लगता है कि भाई वहां पे डालते हैं ऐसा कुछ.
जी. थैंक यू.
सजल जी, नीलेश शेयर.
हाँ नीलेश भाई, हेलो.
बेनिफिट हम भी हुए हैं काफी. 2200 से 1100 की जर्नी में न्यूलैंड, एंड 1500 की एवरेज पे. सो फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल
2200 से 1100.
हाँ, जब न्यूलैंड 2200 पे एंट्री ली थी हमने, एंड
2021 में.
हाँ, सो 1100 तक फिर एवरेज किया, 1500 की एवरेज आई, एंड हैव बेनिफिटेड अ लॉट.
कमाल है.
20% बेचा है और बाकी होल्ड कर रहे हैं.
अरे कमाल है. वंडरफुल.
रिसेंट अराउंड 14,000 के एवरेज पे बेचा है. So it's been really beneficial, so really helpful.
Thank you.
My question was on IOL. On the business side, obviously leader in the market तो है ही है ibuprofen में, but competition भी आ रहा है. They have been suffering on the pricing. I've seen the annual report, few R&Ds, sitagliptin and वगैरह. So just wanted to pick your thoughts and your studies on the IOL. कि आप कैसे देख रहे हैं इसको गिवन
नहीं
द
तो
challenges?
हाँ, आईओएल का तो मैंने बुक में भी मेंशन किया हुआ है। आईओएल में देखो 2-3 जो रीसेंट प्रॉब्लम तो नहीं बोलूंगा, जो एक ट्रेंड आ रहा है कि कोई सीईओ रुक नहीं रहा है इनके यहाँ। ये मेरे हिसाब से रेड फ्लैग है। क्या हो गया भाई, लोग आते हैं निकल जाते हैं। वो चतुर्वेदी साहब बहुत अच्छे थे, लेकिन
Right.
उनको वो साउथ इंडिया ही जाना था, उनका वही होम है वहां पे, तो वो तो उनको जाना ही था, वो तो पता था खैर अपने को। उसके बाद जो इनके सेकंड जनरेशन है, दे आर इन दी बिजनेस, तनख्वाह उठा रहे हैं, सब कुछ कर रहे हैं, वो सामने क्यों नहीं आके कॉल ले रहे हैं इन्वेस्टर से? न्यूलैंड के ब्रदर्स हैं, 2016 से वो इन्वेस्टर्स के टफ क्वेश्चंस फेस कर रहे हैं ना। दे आर नॉट शाइंग अवे फ्रॉम इन्वेस्टर्स। ये कहाँ है?
राइट।
तो ये 2-3 चीजें हैं जो मुझे आईओएल में थोड़ी सी खटक रही हैं, इफ आई एम कम्प्लीटली ऑनेस्ट। तो बी कॉग्निजेंट। इसमें एसएमएस फार्मा भी है, आईबू में और भी है, बट आईओएल का जो मेन गेम है वो नॉन आईबू इन रेगुलेटेड मार्केट्स। वो कितना स्केल अप कर पाएंगे, कितने समय के लिए, कितनी जल्दी कर पाएंगे, वो मैनी स्लिप बिटवीन द कप एंड द लिप।
बराबर है, राइट। ओके,
गॉट इट। वही जैसे इनविटेशन कार्ड, जिस दिन लगे कि यार ये टर्न अराउंड अब सस्टेनेबल लग रहा है, ये करके दिखा रहे हैं, बस उस दिन सोचना नहीं अपने को प्रॉब्लम क्या होती है ना, उस दिन बड़े सारे विचारों में हम होमवर्क आपको करा हुआ होना चाहिए कि व्हाट इज दैट 1 or 2 triggers that I am waiting for this to change my thesis, hypothesis, change my perception। मुझे क्या चाहिए? जिस दिन आपको वो मिले, आप उस दिन ट्रिगर दबा दो।
Agreed. Second was on Ami Organics, I think darolutamide, and this time they have not disclosed the numbers why they have been very high. Obviously, I am assuming it's going to be darolutamide which they have worked for them. But still, your book also mentions that name. But you have to it's not in detail, I think, in the book, but still it would be good to hear your...
बिल्कुल। तो देखो, एमी में क्योंकि स्टॉक हाई पे है तो पॉजिटिव तो बोलना ठीक नहीं रहेगा, मेरा वही मॉडल वही है। तो मैं व्हाट आई वुड लाइक टू सी एमी डू बेटर या इम्प्रूव ग्रॉस मार्जिन। इफ यू आर रियली स्पेशलिटी एडवांस इंटरमीडिएट सीडीएमओ काइंड ऑफ ए कंपनी, आप 43% ग्रॉस मार्जिन पे नहीं काम कर सकते हो। होल इंडस्ट्री इज ऑपरेटिंग एट 50%। हाइकल का 50% ग्रॉस मार्जिन है, आप 43 पे कैसे हो? हाइकल आपसे ज्यादा वैल्यू ऐड कर रहा है, क्यों भाई? तो एक तो वो ग्रॉस मार्जिन वाला एंगल है जो कि मुझे थोड़ा सा इसमें पिंच हो रहा है। दूसरा, अगर मैं प्राइस टू सेल्स देखूं तो वो ऑलरेडी 10x है, तो वहां मेरे एंटीना खड़े हो जाते हैं। प्राइस टू बुक अगर मैं देख रहा हूं तो वो भी 7x है। तो स्टॉक भी सस्ता नहीं है, मार्जिन भी नीचे है ग्रॉस लेवल पे। तो ग्रॉस मार्जिन 43 है, फिर भी आप ऑपरेटिंग लेवल पे अगर 20 दिखा रहे हो, तो इसका मतलब आप बिल्कुल कॉस्ट कटिंग तो नहीं कर रहे हो कहीं कि आपने कंप्लायंस में और एम्प्लॉय की क्वालिटी और ट्रेनिंग में इन्वेस्ट कम कर रहे हो। सो वो कुछ क्वेश्चंस हैं, वो इसलिए इंपॉर्टेंट हो जाते हैं कि जब स्टॉक हैज डन वेल। अभी ये स्टॉक अगर ये नीचे की तरफ कहीं पड़ा होता तो मैं इग्नोर करता कि ठीक है 43% ग्रॉस मार्जिन है, स्टॉक भी, वैल्यूएशन भी कोई खास नहीं है, 2 times 3 times प्राइस टू सेल पे या 4 times प्राइस टू सेल पे, तो चाल से। आई थिंक इज ड्रॉप्ड ऑफ। सो अभी यार 8, अभी चलो क्विक 15 मिनट्स यार, दो तीन जल्दी क्वेश्चन। हाँ इनोसेंट भैया, आपका N-1 हो गया?
हो गया सर, ओके सर, थैंक यू।
हाँ, N-1 शुरू में ही ले लिया हमने।
ओके सर, मैंने थोड़ा लेट ज्वाइन
कोई
किया
बात नहीं, वो हो गया। थैंक यू।
ओके।
एनी मोर एट क्विकली 1 or 2 more? जल्दी यार, क्विक 10 मिनट्स हैं, आपको जो पूछना है आप पूछो। Any last remaining question?
Yeah, hi, Sajal here. Thank you for all the knowledge you've shared over the years. God bless. Learned a lot from your selfless sharing. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you. Question आपका क्या है? Please बोलिए।
Yes, so just wanted to understand. Actually, I'm sorry I joined a bit later. I don't know if I missed out on it, but just wanted your views on Bliss Pharma from a management perspective. We all know the valuations are in a lucrative level, but
you can listen to the recording. I have shared whatever I could have shared at this stage. let the story unfold, and then we'll be much more knowledgeable on that front. I've already covered Bliss
Understood.
in this
I'll
session.
listen to it.
Sure. Thank you.
Understood. I'll listen.
Next one. Yeah. Thank you. Next one.
Good evening, Sajal bhai. How are you? Vineet here.
I can hear you. Hello.
Thank you so much for sharing all your experience and knowledge with the whole world. So I just have two small questions. One is which tools or websites do you generally rely on to get data like price to book, price to sales, EV to EBITDA?
I use a screener. There are others. Tijori भी मैं कभी देखता हूँ. So these are my top screener and Tijori.
Okay. And sir, my second question is, recently you had talked about a small FMCG company busted IPO about Prataap Snacks, and how it is turning around. So just wanted your views that recently a company by Madhusudan Kela has taken a stake in the company, and suddenly the price has gone from 850 to almost 1100. So is there any change in your thesis or in your thinking about this company?
नहीं, मेरी thesis में तो जो ऐसा कोई मेरी thesis में कोई ये factor मेरी thesis में कभी था भी नहीं, आज भी नहीं है. FMCG as a space is struggling, so आपको बड़ा लंबा patience चाहिए होगा. IPO से तो patience test कर ही रहा है ये. अभी कितना और आगे test करेगा वो नहीं पता, because see सारी companies struggle कर रही हैं from Dabur to what. तो थोड़ा सा FMCG में भी डिमांड साइड में प्रेशर है.
So what makes you positive about this company?
है?
So what makes you positive about this company? What they are doing right?
मैंने जिस वैल्यूएशन पे लिया है मैंने कुछ नहीं था, 800 रुपए के आसपास जब मैंने फर्स्ट इसको डिस्कस किया था. इट्स बीन अबाउट 4-5 months. तो वही मैं डाउन साइड देखता हूँ, बिकॉज आई एम अ फर्म बिलीवर इन रैंडमनेस थ्योरी ना. तो नीचे का में लेके डाउन साइड देखना है. ऊपर किसको पता है ऊपर कहाँ कौन सी चीज जाएगी, नहीं जाएगी, कब जाएगी, कितनी जाएगी, वो सब किसको, और उसके बारे में सोचने से फायदा भी क्या है. देयर इज एब्सोल्युटली नो पॉइंट.
And you are equally confident about management.
Always worry about the downside and not the upside.
Right. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Vineet. Thank you. Okay, one or two more questions, and then we'll call it a day, guys. I think we've been going on for almost 2 hours. Any final questions? Anyone requested? Okay, I can add you as a speaker. Anis saab bhi add as a speaker. Okay. चलो यार, बस दो आखिरी के 2 क्वेश्चंस हैं. आप लोग को जो भी पूछना है दिल से पूछो, ईमानदारी से जवाब देंगे.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity for asking the question. Hi, see, actually, I've been reading a lot of annual reports, and I find that there is a lot of variance in the disclosures. Like Neuland is explicit about its pipeline, some companies are not. And so, how do you get a sense of what's cooking? Like, what are they doing about, the pipeline and the longevity or the potency?
Yeah, so Neuland was vocal about their pipeline even 5 years ago. It's nothing new. And Syngene and Piramal were not sharing their pipeline even then, even today. I mean, Piramal still has got some data there. Laurus has got some data. Not at a very detailed level, but at least they are telling Laurus ke paas 90 projects hain. Syngene, Piramal ne bhi, I think they've disclosed how many they have. In phase 3, I think is close to 30-35. Syngene has got no disclosures yet, because Syngene is predominantly on the CRO side today, so maybe they are not having that many commercial. Whatever is there is known in the public domain, so it is as an example. So again, it doesn't matter whether you are sharing or not sharing. The point is, I want to see the execution, and there are enough attributes other than, even if you tell you have got 10 molecules and they all may be intermediates as an example, or they may be RSM. They will not put together more than 100-200 crore, let's say. Whereas if you have got just one molecule and it's a complex 30-step API, that alone can be a 700-800 crore molecule. So the number of molecules is irrelevant. failure is high, as I've been explaining. So from phase 1 to commercial, 92% molecules will drop out.
Okay.
With artificial intelligence and machine learning coming, you will probably bet on better molecules. So that 8% should incrementally improve to 10%, 12% over time.
Okay. So a follow-up to that question is, do companies have a choice of accepting or rejecting a molecule from the innovator?
Oh yeah, of course. They all do. I mean, see, there are several challenges. A is the technology. There's a huge risk of reputational damage. Contract wording could be another reason. Or it could be that you are already working for a partner and this new molecule is a serious competitor. You don't want to spoil that relationship, so you will say, I will not take it. So there's a variety of reasons to say no. And if you're doing something, you're not doing, so if I'm investing in one stock, I'm not investing in something else, mera paisa block ho gaya. So if you're blocking your resources on something which may, even if it's successful, it will give you only 100 crores. You might as well wait for cash leke hold karoge kind of analogy, right? So you might as well wait for a better opportunity with either an existing partner or a new logo. So there are several factors and reasons why I would say no, I don't want this molecule.
Okay. Thank you. I'm done. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, last one. Anisab, you are the final one.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you for the opportunity. So my question was more about US FDA dashboard, audit dashboard. So means in like this value chain coming from China to India. So shall we track the companies which have which are getting new FDA approvals on dashboard and then start analyzing them? Would that be
No.
the good
So
approach?
that should not be, a starting point should be management. Try and track the management, understand whether this is a management you can bet on for next 10, 20 years. At least go with that mindset. It doesn't mean that you will hold that stock for 10 years. You may as well sell it in 10 months. अगर stock 4x हो जाएगा 10 months में तो क्यों hold करोगे? But at least go with that mindset that, मैं इस management के साथ, because just like, किसी के साथ आप दोस्ती करते हो, उसमें कुछ attributes देखते हो. Find good, competent people, ethical people, who have skin in the game, soul in the game, who have fire in the belly. वो सारे attributes एक बार आपके मैच हो जाते हैं. Even if valuation थोड़ा ऊपर के साइड में है, वो मैं digest कर लूंगा. बट किसी क्रूक के साथ या किसी लो एनर्जी आदमी के साथ या जिसमें कैपेबिलिटी नहीं है या जिसमें इंटेग्रिटी नहीं है, उसको तो मैं किसी भी वैल्यूएशन पे नहीं लूंगा ना.
Right.
So you have to worry about the people and the management and nothing but that attribute. लीडरशिप टीम पीछे क्या किया है, किस तरह की टीम बनाई है, वो खुद ही सारा काम कर रहे हैं या they have got delegation, वो सारी चीजें देखनी होती हैं.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Right, guys, it's approaching 8 o'clock. We had a very long session. I enjoyed it. Thank you so much for all your time and great questions. I always learn something from your questions, and none of this is any recommendation.